and welcome to Ask the Theologian today. I'm glad you're here on this Thursday. We're always happy with Thursday because on Thursday, you know what we do on Thursday. I should bring up the graphic. On Thursday, we have Bible study, and we've got this new series going on in our Bible study. And where is that graphic? It's Thursday. I should bring it up. But anyway, we are doing a series on American Christianity, and in this, here we go. I finally got it. On American Christianity, I'll get it eventually, ladies and gentlemen. Now we got it. American Christianity. Colonial fervor to contemporary compromise. Even that colonial fervor didn't have everything right. We talked about that last week in session 1. If you missed it, you can go back and catch it. But you'd be able to pick up tonight too, and not they're somewhat independent. In that colonial fervor, it was oftentimes strongly Calvinistic, especially up in the New England area, or it was strongly creedal in the southern colonies. But there was a fervor. They stood for something. Even the middle colonies, which had a lot more, brought to the table a lot of ideas about religious liberty, and the middle colonies sort of forced the North and the South to allow them to live here, which did a very good thing. That's the middle colonies are probably the best thing there was in terms of our religious liberties. But the middle colonies brought mysticism. Baptist mysticism or Quaker mysticism, different brands, they brought that. Now, tonight we are in American Christianity. We are going to go to the First Great Awakening, and we're going to talk about that. And I think we'll have a fun time looking at that and putting that all together and doing some good and some fun and enjoying. 7 p.m. Mountain Time. That's 9 o'clock on the East. Look forward to having all of you, perhaps live or archived. You can catch that, and we'll go with it. Let's see. I promised yesterday that we would start with what? David Van Houten, right? Houten. I think was the promised first question. Author of Acts 28, Dispensationalism Explained, if you'd like to have that explained to you. But David in Montague, Michigan, has a question, or a follow-up perhaps, about Habakkuk 2:4, which says, "Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith." Now, we had this discussion, I think, on Tuesday. David asked the follow-up question. I didn't get to it Wednesday, but there was a question earlier in the week. Now, he said yesterday he had a question on Habakkuk 2:4. In the Old Testament, salvation involved a combination of personal faith and keeping the law. That, of course, is David's words, but I agree with him. Yeah, Old Testament salvation was a little different because you couldn't say, "I am saved. I am absolutely saved. Saved by his blood. Saved by his blood. Da, 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 da. Saved from the wrath." You know the song? Do you know that song? For I'm saved, saved, saved. It's a good old Baptist song. You couldn't sing that kind of, "Yeah, I'm saved right now." You worked towards, you endured towards to the end. You summarized it well. Personal faith, it certainly took faith. And the keeping of the law, it certainly took the keeping of the law. David goes on. However, the believer today is saved by the faith of Christ, which is given to the believer. I'm going to mitigate that just a little bit, and I think that David would agree with me. That technically is true, but we want to remove any sound of Calvinism. Saved by the faith of Christ, that is, Christ has done the work, and that is given to the believer. I'll say that is given to anyone who believes. Let's put it that way. So saved by the faith of Christ, which is given to anyone who believes. Because when you say given to the believer, it sounds like, oh, I have selected you, I've given you the faith of Christ, and therefore you have faith. And I don't want to sound Calvinist, and I don't think David does either. Now, going on, so given to anyone who believes. Romans 3:23, let's go ahead and pull that up as well. 3:22, excuse me. Romans 3:22 is where Paul comes in and says, even the righteousness of God, which is by faith of Jesus Christ. This is the wording that David used just a moment ago. The believer today is saved by the faith of Christ, which is, and then I edited slightly, given to anyone who believes. So the faith of Jesus Christ unto all and upon all them that believe, for there is no difference. David says, Romans 3:22 quotes that. There is no difference. He says the faith of Jesus Christ is given to believers. Again, I just want to tweak that just a little bit. Is given to all that believe. You summarize that, but I think there's a nuance of difference there, so I want to make that given to all that believe, all them that believe. David goes on, Galatians 2:16, knowing that a man is not justified by the works of the law, but by the faith of Jesus Christ. Even we have believed in Jesus Christ, that we might be justified by the faith of Christ, and not by the works of the law, for by the works of the law no flesh shall be justified. Once again, it's the faith of Jesus Christ is given to all who believe. David then brings up Galatians chapter 2, verse 20. I'll put it up on the right side of the screen. I am crucified with Christ, nevertheless I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me, and the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. So once again, the point being, let me back up to the beginning and get those words right. The point being, salvation involved a personal faith and the works of the law. We look at Romans 3:22, Galatians 2:16, Galatians 2:20. And we say, oh, now we live by his faith, the faith of Jesus Christ. Galatians 3:22 says, the scripture hath concluded all under sin, that the promise by faith of Jesus Christ might be given to them that believe. Now the common thread through all these is it's the faith of Jesus Christ. Ephesians 3:12 speaks of the faith of him. Ephesians 4:7, unto every one of us is given the grace according to the measure of the gift of Christ. Philippians 3:9, be found in him, not having my own righteousness, which is of the law, but that which is through the faith of Christ. Romans 12:3, again, the faith of Christ. So, David says, those verses say, the faith of Christ. It is his faith that is given to those that believe. Our faith can be small as a mustard seed, childlike, milk level, but it's enough to apply his faith. That's a good point, and comes into what we were talking also, I believe, that same day on Tuesday about false conversions and some of these things that came up. Now, He goes on to mention Kaufman's commentary, Coffman. Kaufman's commentaries on the Bible, as rendered here. This verse makes no sense whatsoever, for the paraphrase of the latter part is that the promise by faith in Jesus Christ might be given to them that have faith. What then is the true rendition? Okay, we want to know what the true rendition, faith of Jesus Christ, faith in Jesus Christ. A little bit more that David says. The Authorized Version gave the correct translation, that the promise by the faith of Jesus Christ might be given unto them that believe. I think I have looked at this before in the Greek, and I think that it is absolutely true that the Authorized Version, the King James, has it right. That the Greek is, this is Jesus Christ's faith. I would suspect that the modern versions, let's just look at one of them, we'll look at Galatians 3:22. My suspicion is the modern versions pretty consistently will change this to the faith in Jesus Christ, but let's pull this up and see. Galatians 3:22. A lot of words on your screen here, but the King James here, the faith of Jesus Christ. That's what we're considering. So, NASB, faith in Jesus Christ. ESV, faith in Jesus Christ. NIV, faith in Jesus Christ. Net Bible, one of the worst, out of Dallas Theological Seminary. The faithfulness of Jesus Christ. Now, they went with of. They changed faith to faithfulness. What is that? One is faith is a noun. Faithfulness is sort of a description. It's a little bit of an adverb. I'm not sure technically it would, not an adverb, an adjective. I'm not sure technically it would be an adjective. Maybe you could argue that faithfulness is a noun. That's a thing. It's your faithfulness. But it reads more adjectively. I'm not a fan of switching parts of speech. And the good thing in Greek, you can easily tell what a part of speech is. Unlike English, you say, "Oh, could that be this or that?" In Greek, it's spelled different, so you can tell what it is. But anyway, they keep of, but make the faithfulness rather than the faith of Jesus Christ. Here they, let's see, the NLT, only by believing in Jesus Christ. We'll skip that other than they change the of. And the Christian Standard Bible, okay, they changed it also to faith in. So the only one we've got that kept of was the Net Bible, but they changed faith to faithfulness. Therefore, I think we could say of those 6 modern translations we looked at, 6 out of 6 are not faithful to proclaim the faith of Jesus Christ. I think we would have to argue that the Greek is definitely Jesus Christ's faith. Not faith in Jesus, but it is his faith that becomes the basis. Let's go on and see what David has to say. Even without the authority of the King James, it's absolutely clear that the sinner's faith is in the last clause of this verse. That is in, what verse were we looking at? Galatians 2:22, I believe. No, actually, he was specifically referring to Romans 12:3, that through the grace given unto me, to every man that is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly, according as God has dealt to every man the measure of faith. So, even without the authority of the King James, it is absolutely clear that the sinner's faith in the last clause of this verse has to be the faith of Christ in the preceding clause. I would agree. The faith that saves is never that of the sinner. It was a good point, because nothing, I'm going to quote from the hymn, nothing of my own I bring, simply to thy cross I cling. Now, let's just go with the nothing, because even the clinging to the cross has a little bit of me in it. But what can I bring? Can't really bring anything. He's the one that brought it all. It's his faith that was perfect, picking up with David's words. His faith that was obedient. And so, in the ultimate sense, there's nothing that any sinner can either believe or perform that is capable of justifying him in the eyes of Almighty God. Now, I agree with that. As it says, we need to word that carefully. But is it a certain understanding of belief that is required for salvation? If so, what if I don't pass the test? What if I misunderstood something? What's the level of theological understanding and belief in that do I have to have? Can there be a childlike faith that says, sure, let's go for it? Some people might be offended at my illustration here, but this is the simplest illustration I can think of. You take a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, and you say, hey, Santa Claus is coming on his reindeer, and he is going to come down the chimney, and he is going to leave presents for you. If you're a good boy, girl, he's going to leave presents for you. We're going to leave cookies for him. And lo and behold, next morning, the cookies are gone, the presents are there. The child just totally believed what was said. This is the way it works. Santa Claus comes on his reindeer, lands on the roof, comes down the chimney, leaves gifts, and we give him cookies. This is a great deal. That is purely an acceptance. The child doesn't have to understand anything about that. It's acceptance. I think this is a little bit what David is saying is, if we have to have a standard, a mental standard, a comprehension standard, putting things together philosophically and theologically in our mind, heaven help us. I mean, how many of us are really saved? Or do we just accept it at face value? There it is. Christ has been obedient. Christ has paid the penalty for sins. God, through Christ, is offering it to anyone who wants it. I want it. There we go. It does come back to grace, that really there's nothing that I do bring to the table. So, in the ultimate sense, there's nothing any sinner, David says, that can believe or perform that is capable of justifying him in the eyes of Almighty God, except in the limited or secondary sense of his obedience of faith upon his believing and being baptized, those being prerequisites of his salvation, and thus, in that lower sense, justifying him. I think he's speaking of in the baptism, the Jewish portion. Oh, wait, that's what Kaufman said. Sorry about that. I was thinking that doesn't sound like what David would say. Yeah. Therefore, David says, when Paul quotes Habakkuk in Romans 1:17, God changes the meaning by removing the one word, his. Christians are to use their small faith to tap into his great faith. There's a lot to digest there, obviously. But But I think there is, I certainly agree with this sentiment, should I say. Got the sniffles this morning. We turned the heater on and it, caused the burning dirt. Do y'all ever get a burning dirt smell? But anyway, got the sniffles. Thanks very much, David. Let's move on to Ken in Dallas. Good to see you this morning. This question also came in a couple days ago. Sorry about that. Good morning, good doctor, Ken says. Monday's Ask the Theologian, you addressed a question about the supposed Great Commission and Paul's possible connection. Maybe I misinterpreted, but did you say that Paul said he was a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes? I think I did say that. Do we need to check that out? Let's see. I thought that sounded strange and found the statement in Acts 24, verse 5. Unless I'm misreading the chapter, it was part of a list of accusations against Paul made by Tertullus to Felix. Then, beginning, I want to go to that passage, Acts 24, 5. So here is the accusation. We have found this man, Paul, to be a pestilent fella, a mover of sedition among all the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. Okay, so that was the accusation that was given to him. Ken goes on to say, beginning in verse 10, Paul starts his defense. I believe that's right. As far as I can interpret in Paul's reply, he never acknowledges his association with the sect, but sounds like he disagreed with everything Tertullus stated. Did I miss something related to Paul having any association with this sect? I'm just questioning the assumptions. God bless you. Let's see. So Paul, bring him before the judge. Paul, you have been charged with being a pestilent fella. And charge number 2, a mover of sedition among all the Jews throughout the world. And charge number 3, a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. So this goes on. You've gone about to profane the temple, I guess would be number 4, whom we took and would have judged according to our law, but he ended up taking out of his hand, so we the Jews couldn't do this. We got to stand before you the Romans and take care of these religious charges. And so then in verse 9, the Jews assented, saying these things were so. So yes, that is what we the people charge against him. We the Jews charged against him before the Roman court. So verse 10, Paul, after that the governor had beckoned unto him to speak, answered, forasmuch as I know that thou hast been many years a judge unto this nation, I do the more cheerfully answer for myself, because that thou mayest understand that there are yet but 12 days since I went up to Jerusalem for to worship. They neither found me in the temple disputing with any man, neither raising up people, neither in the synagogues nor in the cities, neither can they prove the things whereof they now accuse me. So there you've got, hey, I was there 10, 12 days ago. Where is the sedition? This is a little bit about, I think I need a lawyer to help me about. I think I'm using this term wrong. I want to call it habeas corpus, but I think I got this wrong. The way I'm defining habeas corpus, and I think this is what I think is wrong, is Paul is saying, you accused me of murder, but there is no dead body. Bring the body out. If somebody's dead and you can associate me with that dead body, fine. But there's no evidence here. So I think this is why he sort of, I'll use the word butters up the judge there right at the beginning. There in verse 10, I know thou hast been many years a judge unto this nation. I do the more cheerfully answer for myself, O your honor. He knows that he's got a good case here, that you got to have some evidence as a Roman, and this is one of the things that the Romans were decently good at, especially during that time, is they did have somewhat of a rule of law. It's why he wasn't killed in Jerusalem. There was rule of law going on there. So back here, they didn't find me in the temple disputing any man. I wasn't raising up people as a mob, neither in the synagogues nor in the city, nor can they prove the things whereof they now accuse me. It is a little bit hard to prove. He's a pestilent fellow. I don't even think under Jewish law, Roman law, or American law, there is a law against being a pest or a pestilence. Otherwise, I might be in jail. But this I confess to thee, that after the way which they call heresy, I want to highlight that word, so worship I the God of my fathers, believing all things that are written in the law and the prophets, and have hope toward God, which they themselves also allow, that there shall be a resurrection of the dead, both of the just and the unjust. Now, he's going to bring this down to resurrection because he wants to split them up. He wants to show they've got some strange bedfellows going on here. But here is where I got that he, in verse 14, that he accepts one of the 3 or 4 charges against him, ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. Maybe I went too far. Maybe he doesn't call himself a ringleader. But let's go back and look. We'll come back to where's the charge against him? Verse 5. Okay, the word sect right there. Let me see if yes, we'll just go by numbers right here. That, if you can read that, that says G139 in green of the sect, G139. That is Augustus H. Strong's number. This is word number 139 in the Greek. Now, let's go down again to, what verse was that? 14, I believe. Heresy, right there. If you can see that, that is also G139. Erisis is the word. We typically pronounce the H. It wasn't in that particular Greek word. An erisis was a sect. I think you get the word erudite out of this too. What does erudite mean? He's gonna check for me. And what's the person who lives up in the mountains and never sees anybody? Hermit? Am I mixing up some words? What does erudite mean?
Person who is well-educated, well-read,
Well-educated, well-read, and intellectually deep. Does it have my name there? It's not there. Okay. I want to say there's a relation there, but only in the sense that off in a class by themselves. Erisis, hermit, off by himself. Erudite, off by himself. Sect, heresy. It's a subset. It's actually a fairly simple word. We've added in English a lot of theological concept on it, like they're not orthodox. But really the word just meant they're not with the full stream of people. So when we come back here, let me turn those numbers off, verse 14, the word heresy right here, let's change that to sect because it is the same word that we see up earlier, the sect of the Nazarene. I confess unto thee that after the way which they call a sect, so worship I the God of my fathers. So maybe I went too far, Ken, I would agree. Maybe I went too far in that he might not be calling himself a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarene, but he certainly is not unwilling to say, I'm a part of the sect of the Nazarene. Pestilent fella? I don't know about that. And stirring up sedition, was that the word there? Yeah, a mover of sedition. He denies this one. He really kind of ignores pestilent fella. I'm not even going to speak to that one, he says. Mover of sedition among the Jews throughout the world. This is where he says, I was in the temple less than 12 days ago. I've been in synagogues all over the place. Where in the world have I brought about sedition? If you're going to charge me with sedition, there better be some sedition. And a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes, okay, I'll take this as he says, I'm definitely a part of that heresy. I'm definitely a part of that group. Yeah. So he doesn't, you are right in that he doesn't call himself a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarene. But I think that he associates himself with that guilt. Are you a let's see, a ringleader by nature of saying, yes, I'm part of that, and by being such a prominent person? Does that make you a little bit of a ringleader? I don't know. Or does ringleader, do you have to have a ceremony and get the ring to be a ringleader? Debatable there. Pastor Timothy in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Once again, I'm working on some older questions. My apologies for that. They're all just a couple days old. I want to get caught up. Based upon, Pastor Timothy says, based upon your using the principle of first use in your study of Scripture, I do kind of like this. Stopping in the middle of your sentence, pardon me. Principle of first use, sometimes called law of first use, whatever you want to call it, is that in the Bible, the first time we find a word in the Bible, and I am even going to go with, as we find it the way our Bible is laid out. Let's go by page number. The first time we find it in the pages of the 66 books of the Bible. That is the one we're going to have to set as the default for all that go beyond. That doesn't mean that's the only meaning of the word. It means that if we get to a second, third, fourth use, and we want to argue that it's used differently here, we just have to have a good argument. And many times there are good arguments, but if we don't have a good argument, we got to go with first use. Now, with that, just a little bit of background. Based upon your principle of first use in the study of Scripture, I wonder about the word elect. The first time it appears is Isaiah 42, verse 1, and is a reference to Israel. We read Isaiah 42, 1, Behold, my servant, whom I uphold, mine elect, in whom my soul delighteth. I have put my spirit upon him, he shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. Okay, Israel, let's see. I'm gonna take your word for it that my servant here is Israel. I think that if we were to do the research, we would find, yeah, that's exactly right. It's talking about Israel here. And another place in Isaiah, maybe it's later, another place in Isaiah refers to Israel, mine elect. Isaiah has the servant passages, which can sometimes double up. It's Israel, it's the Messiah. So there's the possibility you could interpret this as the Messiah. My servant, my Messiah, my chosen one, whom I uphold, mine elect, in whom my soul delighteth, I have put my spirit upon him. There's a possibility you could read this as the Messiah, but I think there's equally the ability to put this on Israel. For example, take this Israel. Does Israel get God's spirit? Yeah, let's back up. Is Israel's God elect? Yeah, we could find places that say that. Does God delight in Israel? Yeah, apple of his eye. Does God put his spirit upon Israel? Absolutely. Acts chapter 2. Will Israel bring forth judgment to the Gentiles? Yeah, they are the judge of the Gentiles. So absolutely works for Israel. We're going to take it for Israel here. So there are two things I'm going to assume in this question. One is this is for Israel. And two, I'm going to go ahead and assume this is the first time. I suspect that it is, but that this is the first time we have elect. So that then defines the elect as my servant Israel. So if we're going to change it, we've got to have a good argument. Now to the 2 points Pastor Timothy brings. One, does that mean that Paul is addressing the Jews when he uses the word in Romans 8:33, Colossians 3:12, and Titus 1:1? I am going to venture, before we look to those, I am going to venture yes. That does mean that Paul is addressing the Jews. And if I determine that there's no way it can be the Jews, then I've got to have a really good argument otherwise. So I'm going to bring up 3 panels because that's the most I can bring up, even though we've got 4 scriptures to deal with here. Romans 8:33 and Colossians 3:12. Let's look at those two. Here's the Isaiah passage, mine elect. We say this is Israel, first used. Now, Romans 8:33, who shall lay anything to the charge of God's elect? I don't have a problem at all saying that's Israel. That Israel is in a protected status. Now they're in blindness. Now God's not dealing with them. But there is nothing that you can charge Israel with that is going to take away their elect status. Who can do it? Evangelicals have tried. The Catholics certainly have tried, and yet Israel's status as mine elect stands true. Israel's status as the one in whom my soul delighteth stands true. Israel's status as the one upon whom God's Spirit has fallen stands true. Israel's status as the one who will bring forth the judgment to the Gentiles stands true. Who is he that condemneth? It is Christ that died, yea, rather, risen again, even at the right hand of God, who makes intercession for us, who shall separate us from the love of Christ. I think this here is talking about Israel. Now, I know that I am in a sect of my own on this, because all the evangelicals, well, let's say all other Christians except Nancy and I. I just happen to see Nancy's name. I'm sure she agrees with me. Nancy, if you don't agree with me, don't say anything. All other Christians would take Romans 8:33 in that context there and apply it to us. I think the challenge with that is you would have to become Calvinist, because election is a pretty clear thing. If the Christians are elect, like Nancy and Randy and Corsicana and Cliff up there and Kitchener and, on and on we go. If we're the elect, then we got to have some kind of Calvinism. We might drift a little from standard Calvinism, but there'd have to be some kind of Calvinism. I have no kind of Calvinism at all. I used to, a long time ago, I used to say I'm a 0-point Calvinist. This is when I was struggling through it. And the only reason I said that is because I didn't think I was an Arminian. And I'm not an Arminian. But I thought there were only two categories because I was not erudite enough to realize, hey, those are two pigeonholes that man made. Why do I have to stick in those two pigeonholes? I can be erudite. I can be a hermit out there by myself. Have your own pigeonhole. So this sets me aside from virtually all the rest of Christianity, including right division. I think most right division takes Romans 8:33 and applies it to the body of Christ today, which then I think they're stuck into a little bit of having to accept some kind of Calvinism. Let's go to the Colossians passage. Put on, therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, bowels of mercy. Now, if you go to in fact, either one of these, in the notes, if you follow my notes on Biblify, I have a note both on Romans 8:33 and on Colossians 3:12. Check those notes out. Or find the sessions on those, which honestly is pretty easy to find. I think you could go, let's say right here to Worshipify and put in Romans 8. Yeah, just put in Romans 8 and you could find somewhere, here's the 33 session, is session 22. Or you could put in Colossians, you may have to spell it out, but Colossians 3, and you may have to even spell it correctly, is a possibility. Yeah, there, Colossians 3. So just type the passage of Scripture in there and you'll get it. If you want to find out more in there. Now, in this, I took this word right here as, I took it exactly as it is both in English and in Greek. That is, this is an adverb. Adverbs modify how you are doing something. So Colossians 3:12 doesn't say who you are. It says, this is the manner in which you should, let's put it in red, in which you should put on bowels of mercy. You should do it like the elect of God. Take as, understand it as like, in the same manner of. Again, it's an adverb, so you absolutely have to. You do not have another choice. You cannot take it as a, what would it be, a subject. Hello, elect of God, I want you to put it on bowels of mercy. You can't do that because that's not what he wrote. Nobody can do that. If you do it, you're just wrong. Now, you could be mistaken and do it. Okay, but it'd be easy to say, oh, I thought that was a subject. I didn't realize that's not a subject. That's an adverb. But you can do just a little bit of work and find out that's an adverb. And then you find out, oh, well, I know what I have to do with adverbs. I have to use that to modify the verb. The verb here is put on. Put on bowels of mercy. Bowels of mercy is the indirect object. How am I supposed to put on? It's going to be down here in the sentence diagram. How am I supposed to put on? The same way the elect of God, holy and beloved, do it. And then I just go back to the Old Testament and say, how does the Old Testament teach the elect of God how to put on bowels of mercy? And it's all the way through there. The law is full of, hey, elect of God, here's how to wear bowels of mercy. Here's how to have bowels of mercy. Here's how you as the elect ought to be merciful from your innermost being. That's almost part and parcel with the law. Almost a substitute for the law is, hey, have bowels of mercy. Love your neighbor as yourself. The second commandment, second greatest commandment. It's so that's what I would do with that one. So yeah, I don't diverge. Let's try Titus chapter 1 verse 1. I don't know if I've studied that one much, as much, or it's been a while. Paul, a prisoner of Jesus Christ, Timothy our brother, Philemon, our dearly beloved, let's see, Paul, a prisoner, Timothy, our brother, Philemon, I think I must have the wrong chapter. Well, maybe it's because I'm in Philemon instead of Titus. It's always a possibility that that's the wrong place. Here we go. Paul, a servant of God and an apostle of Jesus Christ, according to the faith of God's elect. This is one thing. And the acknowledging of the truth, which is, got too many things going on my screen there, which is after godliness. There's the possibility, one, that you read these as two different things, depending on how you read and. And is going to be our key word there. That is to say, it's a conjunction. Is it in addition to, plus, also? Or is it even as? Are these connected together, or are they pushed apart? Which one? Conjunction, junction, what's your function? That's what you're going to have to ask there, looking a little bit into the Greek. But, he does come according to, that's probably the word kata, but we would want to, I'd want to check into that if I was digging in deeply. But I would say, hey, I'll put this with Romans chapter 1, verse 16. I'm not ashamed of the gospel of the identity of Christ, the gospel of Christ, the gospel of the Messiah. I'm not ashamed of that. And so that's what I would say to Titus. Even though Titus is a Gentile, clearly not circumcised, Paul, as a Jew, comes with a grace gospel that is not, it doesn't throw the Jews under the bus, according to the faith of God's elect, according to the faith of Israel, and the acknowledging of the truth. So, getting back to the question here, number one, does that mean that Paul is addressing the Jews when he uses the word in these three passages? I would say yes. Well, Titus, he's not really addressing them. He just says, I come according to that. So but there's a yes, basically. Number two, does this thinking then limit Calvinism to the elect, meaning the Jews? Yes. I think that Calvinists get predestination from the Bible. I just think they apply it to the wrong people. Calvinists don't rightly divide, and so Calvinists see people as people, which sounds like a good thing. But there are times when people are Jews And that's God's elect, and they don't separate that. So Calvinists, they tend to be amillennial, not completely, but a lot of Calvinists tend to be amillennial. Calvinists tend to be, well, they don't tend to. Calvinists are covenantal in their approach. I suppose there's a few confused dispensational Calvinists out there, but they're basically covenantal in their approach, which means they put the body of Christ under Israel's covenants. They stir all that together, stick it in a blender, and go with it. And it works as long as you don't ask questions or divide anything. Let's see here. I see Janet. Good to see. I don't know if we've met Janet online here, but glad to see you. Yeah. Okay. I see Janet has a little. I'll call it a question. It's a 3-word question. Elect equal chosen? Question mark. I think so. I think you can use those interchangeably. Israel, mine elect. Israel, my chosen ones. And that you and I are, through the faith of Christ, through the work of Christ, through the offer that God is giving by grace through faith, not of yourselves, you and I, if I can put it in this way, we choose to accept it. You and I are recipients. Can't mark ourselves too special because he's offering it to everybody. You know, you want it, you go get it. So we have this blessing of being gifted, graced our salvation. He would do that for anybody. He did not choose us for that. He said, whosoever will. Israel, on the other hand, is elect before the foundation of the world. Chosen. And their purpose is very different. The salvation that's given to us today, this is a little bit of a broad brush to put this in, but the salvation given to us today is a heavenly kind of salvation. Israel is elect or chosen for an earthly purpose, to bring about the Messiah through Israel. It's one of their purposes. To have dominion over the world, to fulfill the earthly purpose even of the earth itself. And so Israel will govern the earth in the millennial kingdom, not today, but in the millennial kingdom. So, yeah, I would put elect as chosen to be the same thing in that case. Thanks, Janet. Thanks for being here. Always appreciate that. And by the way, Janet, or anyone else, if you have a question and you're watching on the live stream, put the word question first. It helps me not to miss that. But thankfully, we've got a few good people like Myra who said, question from Janet. And that popped it over to my side, and then I know, look for Janet. Glad you're here, Janet. Well, let's see. Pastor Ron just popped up, and it looks like something nice, so I'm going to put it in here. Do you have an idea of how much your ministry has helped me in my ministry? Let me count the ways. thank you. I dealt with many different things in 5 months here, and your example has been very helpful. Thank you, brother. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I enjoyed pastoring Ron and Angie for how many years was it? I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And their boys, and now he's in Chugwater, Wyoming. Has been a pastor for 5 months after being a public school educator for how long, Ron? A career, anyway. And then became the pastor of this church. Let me say to you, those of you who are churches out there looking for a pastor, do not be scared to take, I'll call him a professional from another, someone from another profession. Don't be scared to say, oh, wait a minute, they don't have a seminary degree and they don't have 5 years experience as a pastor, as usually is what they say is, as a senior pastor or lead pastor. They don't have that experience. I'll say that experience can come in really good if it's a church of, I'll go 500 and up. But I think I said this the other day. Pastoring a church is not rocket science. A school teacher can figure it out. A banker, a butcher, a baker, a candlestick maker. They deal with the same things. And get you a companion Bible, a Strong's Concordance, a Schofield Reference Bible. You can learn the preaching part and the theology part probably better. So churches out there running, I'll go less than 500. If you're over 500, let's talk and see if this is the best thing for you. But under 500, find somebody with the personality you need for your church, with the skills you need for your church, and every church kind of needs a little bit something different. Don't box yourself in too much, because every church thinks we need somebody to visit the sick and we need somebody to fix the toilet. That's what we need. Preach the sermons. You don't know, really. I don't know that my little church, America's Greatest Tiny Church, would have said we need an erudite, scholarly academician, because my church is not educated other than by the School of Hard Knocks. We get some higher education, but that was more Katy than it is here. So they probably wouldn't have said, hey, I think we need a gentleman and a scholar. Because Taos it's not really a gentlemanly town, is it, would you say? It's super casual and laid back, and people wear shorts all the time, and I always looked like I wore a suit, but little did they know. And yet I was what they needed. So be kind of open there. If you're in a small church looking for, and most of you someday are going to be in a small church looking for a pastor. What in the world don't go that path of saying, hello seminary, we need the resumes of those who have 5 years of experience, and I would say is there a nicer way to say you're going to get a loser? It's probably not nice to say, is it? So find somebody out there who's been a butcher, a baker, a candlestick maker. Go for it. Say, hey, you can do this. We think you can do this. We are calling you to carry that out. How about that? I am out of time. Never out of questions, but we'll go. I do notice Alan in Portland just asked a question, and I'm going to see if I can take care of that one very quickly. I'm not sure. I haven't refreshed the screen in a while, but it's close enough. He said, "Where are the birds?" I got a little spinning screen, so this is not completely live, but there are the birds. What happens is there is a time, especially late summer, that I take the bird food down. Otherwise, I have bears and raccoons and 80,000 chipmunks and maybe a skunk every now and then. We don't get many up there, but we get some. And who knows what else of God's living creatures that come and go. But I don't know, you can't tell much from that picture, but you see all the yellow leaves on the ground. There's some down there in the grass, the yellow leaves. And this is the snow gauge over here. No snow, as you can tell. Anyway, it was, I think, 26 this morning when I woke up. So I think we're going to be about ready to put the bird feeder back up and be ready to go. So don't fear. The birds are near. I actually like the winter birds better than the summer birds anyway. The summer birds are prolific, but they're just gray. You know, we've all seen a gray bird. The winter, now you do get some of the pretty ones. Early in the summer, you get the birds migrating through, and they're pretty. You get a few, you all probably would call them blue jays. They're not technically blue jays. Here we have, they're called Steller's jay. Steller's jay. It's a darker blue, almost a bluish black. You can look it up. It's shaped just like a blue jay, but a blue jay is a bright blue. A Steller's jay is a dark blue. We get some of those. We get the Western Grosbecks, which are beautiful birds. So we get a few coming through that are really nice. But then about August or so, we get gray birds. It's not that exciting. But now we'll start getting the woodpeckers and, you know, all those kind of the finches and the chickadees, and we'll have some fun with that. 43 degrees in Corsicana, getting kind of cool down there in Texas too, isn't it? Thanks for being here, everybody. I do appreciate it. And, of course, I would love to see you again tonight, 7 p.m. for American Christianity, Colonial Fervor to Contemporary Compromise. And this is session 2. We are talking about, the First Great Awakening. And we'll have fun with that. We'll be back tomorrow morning for Ask the Theologian. And hope to see you there. Want to put a question in. I've still got some old ones. Sorry about this. I'm having a hard time catching up. But we will get on these tomorrow. AskTheTheologian.com. You can put in your question 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. A blessing to see you all. God bless. We'll see you soon.